All right, hey, we're going to visit two places today. They come primarily from Kirkland and Dr. Barry Fell. Kirkland visited both these sites in 1939 in this particular setting. You're going to see what can happen over a long period of time to various sites. One of the sites was turned into a state park, a Texas state park, and is in fairly good shape. The only thing is that they need more workers there because one of the sites, Waco Tanks, which is that state park just out of El Paso, about, what is it? It's a few miles, very few miles, what would it be, east of El Paso. We find an area that certainly has been utilized as a state park primarily for climbing, but within this state park there are some of the most beautiful, absolutely beautiful petroglyphs and pictographs that you can find anywhere in the nation. And it's obvious travelers came up the Rio Grande River, that they settled in that area, that not necessarily settled there, but wrote. And you're going to find that at Waco Tanks, that dual alphabets, two separate alphabets were used, such as Ogham and Iberian, that say the same thing, water. And of course, that's what Hueco means, is water. From the air, this is a very strange, or on the ground either, a very strange area. It's made up of three separate parts. As you can see there on the screen, you have the larger portion is broken into two segments, basically three mountains, about a mile long, and they are utilized in this state park today for climbing and recreation. But the petroglyphs themselves are being protected. I understand since we have been there, which was well over a year ago, that there has been some damage, and that's a sin that it has. And from Blue Mountain, which we had a great deal of difficulty finding, it took a lot of searching and trial and error, but God led us right into Blue Mountain, which is not a mountain at all, but is along what we call the Cap Rock in Texas, and it was a little disappointing when we were there. And we'll be showing that to you in a moment. So we have both of these sites that we're going to be discussing. One, a very sad finding, since 1939 would have been about 50 years ago. You can see what can happen in a 50-year period when the petroglyphs have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. But man is certainly a very destructive animal when they are not educated in the value historically from our ancestors, from the travelers of this nation. So here we go, two locations in this documentary. Fascinating. Dr. Barry Fell will advise on some of this and has on all of it, as well as Mr. Kirkland. We thank him. His book is no longer in print, but his research that 39 years ago was invaluable, and we just thank him as well. All right, here we go, Waco Tanks. Okay, we're here near El Paso, Texas, and we're about 35 to 40 miles east of El Paso, Texas. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Mr. Robert, that's Bob Miles, who is a park ranger here. And I'm just going to turn this over and let him welcome any of you that might ever want to pass by this way, and at the same time tell us a little bit about the park. Bob, thanks for having us, and it's a real pleasure being here with you.
Thank you. I'm park superintendent, by the way. Same difference, but would like to welcome you all to Waco Tanks State Historical Park. We've got 860 odd acres here of rock formations that were formed about 34 million years ago. It's low-grade granite called cyanide porphyry. We have an estimated 5,000 Indian pictographs, Indian paintings here scattered throughout the park on the rocks. picnic areas, 20 campsites, and are open 365 days a year. Entrance fee is $3 per vehicle. Okay, the Texas Conservation Passport does entitle you to the entrance at all the state parks and $1 off a night in camping area. Available at all the state parks for $25 a year. And are helping Texas Parks and Wildlife Department pay their own way and cover their own expenses without the taxpayer carrying the load. The rock art I mentioned, the Indian pictographs scattered all over the park represent basically 3 periods. We estimate the oldest may go back between 3,000 and 6,000 years as a desert archaic. The middle period is another branch of the Mogollon culture, which represents a more settled agricultural people. And then the historic period, the Apache, Comanche, Kiowa, who lived and roamed through this area. Primarily the Apache lived in this area. We do try to give tours when we can. If you call ahead, we'll do our best to make arrangements. Don't have any set schedule. Sometime during the summer we do, and try to have evening programs at least once a week, slide programs on different aspects of interest to park visitors. If anybody does have further information or does want to make some campsite reservations up to 90 days in advance, they can contact us at 6900 Waco Tanks Road. That's Hueco, Waco Tanks Road, El Paso 79936, or call us at area code 915-857-1135. The name Waco is a Spanish word. It means hollow, and it refers to the hollows in the rocks that collect and hold rainwater. So basically, Waco and tanks really refer to the same thing. Okay, here's one of the Wacos here, and in the earlier years, the rancher family, the Contreras family, did get a lot of their drinking water from this particular Waco here. Sometime or other they put that little dam across there. I don't know for sure why, whether maybe to help filter some of the settlement out, or maybe to separate drinking from bath water, but we don't really know why. And this also is one of the rock art sites. By Kirtland's count, we usually just use Forrest Kirtland's numbering system and have expanded on it. And this is site 18. And you can see back in here in white and red, primarily some of the rock art. Probably mostly this is probably mostly the desert archaic period, with a little of the middle period, or the Puebloan period, as I usually refer to it, to another branch of the Mogollon culture. We don't know what they mean. We make educated guesses at some of them, and a lot of people have got a lot of guesses. Probably one's as good as another, and that's part of the fun of it, is trying to figure out what you think it means. We, as I said, don't know what these represent. Some of them are fairly obviously stories of hunts or battles. The older stuff may be maps or of trails or where water is. The zigzag lines that you see scattered throughout the park in different periods probably have something to do with water, some indication of water. And of course, this is located near a water source. And we have all different kinds of designs, some very faint, you really can't make them out. Arrows and zigzags and squiggles and a little lattice work over there. As I mentioned, we were still continuing to use Kirtland's numbering system, but it began to get a little confusing, because when we find some more in one area where he's numbered, We just add a prefix, a number to it. So we're getting 17 A, B, C, D, E, and on down to O, I think, in some cases. This is one of the sites.
You ready?
Probably the first one that was actually, I know of, this is probably one of the first the rock art sites that we know of that was actually recorded back in the 1850s. The first U.S. boundary commissioner, John Russell Bartlett, was through this area. And in some of his narratives, he drew some of the drawings that were in here and described some of this area. We think they camped right in this vicinity. Unfortunately, you can see how black it is from so many campfires being built in here, which has covered a lot of the rock art. And you can see a lot of the historical graffiti. We get a lot of argument, well, isn't the modern graffiti the same as this? And the best argument I've been able to come up with is that it wasn't illegal then, it is now. And we do prosecute. But you can see a lot of the historical graffiti in 1869, 1850s, 1880s. We think the original Butterfield Overland State Station was right in this vicinity, and that the stones were later moved by the ranchers who built some outbuildings. But I mentioned the smoke, the charcoal carbon deposits on the rock actually seem to be protecting some of the rock art. And as it weathers away, we're beginning to see some of the rock art beginning to come back out. So this may be inadvertently helping us protect it.
Interesting. That is really interesting.
Can you point out any specifics for us?
Well, there's some paint figures here that I don't think had been, Kirtland had recorded, these warrior-like figures. Now this and the deer over here, that's graffiti. And you can see some of the bedrock mortars where they pounded their seeds. The mounted warrior over here with this 1898 graffiti on top of it. It's probably, they think it's Mescalero or Apache. Of course, the horse is a dead giveaway for a historic period. Yeah, this was Kirtland Site 1, Pictograph Site 1. It seems to tell the tale of a battle that took place out here about 1839. And we have the rock art version, we have the Tigua Indian version, we have the Kiowa Indian version. Somewhere in the Juarez archives has got to be the Mexican version because they were all involved in the battle. Basically what it was some of the Kiowas came down from off the plains of Texas and Oklahoma to raid over to what now is Juarez. When they got down here, they found that the soldiers were a little bit too alert, so they thought, well, they'd wait. So they came back out here to camp, decide what to do, and they noticed the soldiers coming after them with some of their Tigua Indian allies. And they had plenty of time. There weren't but maybe 10, 20 of the Kiowas, as opposed to 100 or more of the Mexicans and Tiguas. And they thought, well, we got plenty of time to run for it. And one of them said, no, I said, I came all this way to fight and we haven't fought. Well, I'm going to stay here and fight. So I said, okay. These were some of the dog soldiers, the real elite, the bravest of the brave of the Plains societies. So they stayed and they got trapped in a cave, probably down this canyon over here, and trapped in there without food or water for several days. And finally and that's what this tells the story of. You can see the Mexican soldier here in the black trousers and had the red coat, holding a staff like he's gardening, and a pinched waist figure without a head, maybe indicates hunger. And on down, unfortunately, this has been pretty badly damaged in a attempt to clean graffiti off some years back, before we decided not to get so zealous on cleaning graffiti. And then you'll see over here fishbone shape, kind of like fingers sticking up. And then they found a tree in a crevice that they finally crawled out of and escaped.
You gotta bring.
One, two, three, 1, 2. There's a half bar. They didn't draw that half bar in. So that says more than GS. Half bar is what? Let me see.
Half a bar is
Half bar to the staff. This is Ogham right here. There's the Iberian,
wow.
and here's the Ogham. And look at this, there's the tank.
Yeah, and there's an arrow pointing to it too. I'll
Yeah.
go back up a little bit, right coming off of it, pointing straight to the water.
Oh yeah,
Well,
right here.
no, go
No?
back to your left a little bit. Yeah, that direction. There's an arrow pointing
Oh,
toward that
okay.
tank.
Well, I'll be darned.
I got a shot of that.
What did you say this was? It looked like a...
That's that. They had a picture of it in there. Remember I told you that's that Halloween or the
Yeah.
rabbit man?
Yeah. Rabbit man.
I'm calling that from reading several different books. And they used it as the Halloween figure originally. We looked at it last night, remember? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I am so thankful that this isn't desecrated. This is a reward. So we got red paint people, and we got Ogham using red paint. But I don't believe these are the same age. I don't believe that this language, I think the Ogham is older. Or it could have been the consistency of their paint didn't last as long. The thing that makes this site so exciting and rewarding is the fact that we have two languages on the same stone. Many times it's guesswork as to what the word water means in any language, such as a snake being used. But here, in both an Iberian type, as Dr. Fell no doubt will be explaining, and in Ogham. And it's pretty well preserved, and thank goodness, I guess in the hard places to get to, it seems like that has a way of protecting writing. It would appear that the Ogham is older than the Iberian type. The Iberian type reminds me of the Mim. So what a fantastic site. We'll try to get a camera in on this so you can see it. And definitely, because it says water in both languages, there's a huge tank growing. Intermittent, meaning probably that the water was intermittent through the year according to the season in that tank, with arrows pointing to it. We may have to show this to you by slide, but we'll see what Mike can do here with the video. I'm coming in. I don't know, Mike. You may need the halogen that's in there.
Yeah.
That's going to be the trick.
strange if they picked one rock like that.
Well, you know,
Of course, that's been probably a good night spot too, you know.
yeah, you're pretty well protected. Your back's protected. Almost like a megalith, too. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, exactly.
Huh.
Maybe this is the tank they had drawn there in Fort.
I'm thinking that they were drawing that other tank right across there, and that
Oh,
arrow was headed
yeah, that's it.
right to it.
Yeah, because this never was much of a tank.
Here we are in Waco Tanks Park, just 40 miles east of El Paso. We have been fortunate enough to find some good ridings just down the hill here. Just above the ancient ridings, we have found part of what they call this area the Tanks area. This was a lava area, and as you can see, this whole area was hollowed out at one point in time, and you can see that water actually stood in the area. You can see a fault line running through the fissure, and the rock is broken away, and there's no longer a tank in this immediate area, but it shows just a small example. There are many larger tank areas. We'll be probably looking at those later today. See those two crosses real good right now. Was there somebody standing by those two crosses, the two black ones?
I don't know, but we sure do.
This
We need
sure
a
looks
picture.
like-
See that circle with the cross in it there? That's a tet. That's Phalo-Hebrew tet.
Where?
Right there.
Right up there, and that cross right below it. Do you think they made that cross? They did, didn't they? You see those, Michael?
Oh, it's got a, yeah, it's got a.
Is it got a turtle or anything affixed to that tet, the cross with a circle?
I just see a couple of lines, one at the top,
Okay.
one at the bottom. It
I
looks like
think that line
something.
at the top says there's better shelter back over here some.
I've seen that before.
I think that little man, I'm sure he's on the paperwork, isn't he?
Yeah.
Or up here, the Iberian little man?
This is one that show, well, I don't see an A unless, well, that's an A. Is this any kind of, yeah, that's it right
That's it,
there.
yeah, that's it. Boy, she's a beauty.
Is there a water snake in here?
I wouldn't be surprised.
But I don't see him right on there.
Here it is, right here.
On page 16,
We're at 20.
15 and 16?
How did we, I
Okay,
thought
20's right past 12. That's all
I
right.
thought 20 was on the other side.
Uh,
Yeah, see, Barry Fell says this was here in 39.
20 is right next door to 12, must be around the corner.
Oh, 21 is the one I want to go to, isn't it?
Wait a minute,
No.
We didn't
I'm
find one.
confused. Let me
This
see
is
this
20,
again.
guys.
This is 20, definitely is, because Fell says, and that was here in
It's
39,
on 15
Fell
and
says that's
16,
Iberian.
Dave.
Okay.
Page 15.
This presentation is on ancient European visitors to West Texas. In Aesop Volume 10, just 10 years ago, I drew attention to what I called America's links with Bronze Age Europe. The evidence was mainly petroglyphs from Texas. This past spring, Dr. Arnold Murray planned a filming trip to Texas, and he asked me to direct him to the area most likely to be productive of evidence of ancient contacts, and I urged him to go to Waco Tanks, West Texas. Waco Tanks comprises a series of rock formations in which pure rainwater and seepage can be trapped naturally, providing a welcome relief in this parched area where the water of the adjacent Rio Grande is apt to be foul. Throughout the ages, people have come to Waco Tanks to obtain clean water. Evidence of this is shown by the bilingual petroglyphs, giving the universal hieroglyph for water, such as we see now on the screen, and sometimes accompanied by Ogham letters, SG, for Ishka, Gaelic or Gadelic for water. Dr. Murray's party found and photographed various examples of these painted in red ochre and sometimes in black. The people who painted these signs were using Old World letters and language, so they must have been visitors who crossed the Atlantic in boats or ships, and they could only have reached Waco Tanks by sailing up the Rio Grande. I had asked Dr. Murray to look out for pictographs of ships resembling those Bronze Age examples we find in Scandinavia. They found faded paintings of ships with high bow and stern posts, like the Scandinavian examples, also flat vessels with a high stern. In all cases, the crew were shown as vertical lines, as the rowers are shown on Bronze Age ships, petroglyphs, and pictographs. Although these vessels look fragile, nevertheless the vessels of the seagoing Scandinavians of the Bronze Age look just as fragile, yet they crossed the seas. It is extremely probable that some at least of these ships were in fact Scandinavian, for they found the same kind of Bronze Age solar pictographs as occur in Bronze Age Scandinavian sites. They turned up in the Waco Tanks area. These include sun discs with legs, left-hand side of the slide 12, sun men with limbs, head, and sometimes holding a spear, slides 13 and 14, and various other sun forms, slides 14 and 15. These point to sun worship of the Bronze Age type, as in Scandinavia. In addition, slide 16 shows crosses, but we do not think that these indicate Christianity, as they seem rather to be contemporary with other older sun figures of the Bronze Age around 1000 BC. We come now to the most remarkable of the Waco Tanks pictographs. These are strange rectangular representations of the human figure, covered with geometric designs. The only ones Arnold's party found are very faint. This one is so faint as to almost vanish from sight. But Forrest Kirkland, in his Rock Art of Texas, found some that are very much more distinct. These are drawings made by Kirkland in his 1967 book, Rock Art of Texas. They have become the object of inquiry by me over the past 10 years. I believe that these pictographs are the work of Chalcolithic, that's early Copper Age, Bronze Age people, Chalcolithic people, whose original home was in southern Portugal and Spain. There they engraved flat schist plaques for burial with their dead, like these examples. These are replicas, these are not the original plaques, these are replicas of them, engraved, as I said, on schist and buried with their dead. The simplest type is this type, just like an adze. It looks as if they've used a large adze and simply engraved a pattern of triangles and other markings of that kind on it. The second type we call the ocular plates, which are like the first type, only there are two eyes engraved at the top of the plaque. What they signify we don't know. And the third type occurs where the human body is even more distinctly suggested, with a distinct head engraved at the top, and then the two eyes are on that head. The other markings generally consist of triangles or geometric figures similar to triangles. Well, those are very distinctive objects found in southern Spain and Portugal. The people who made these objects engraved them apparently for burial with their dead. That's at least we find them in their graves. They buried their dead in megalithic passage graves, as they're called, like this one at Anto do Silva, or in rectangular chambers, such as this example at Villanova de Paiva, Portugal. The engraved burial plaques were of the three main kinds that I've just pointed out in these reproductions. We have them also on film, as you see there. Simplest, as I said before, being of an adze-like shape, and they merely carry geometric decoration. Then there are examples like the ones on the right-hand side with the eyes showing, with a pair of owl-like eyes, the so-called ocular plaques, and then the ones of the third type with a head added to produce a curiously geometric human figure. Now the curious thing is that in the examples from Texas at Waco Tanks, we find all three varieties. They're not plaques, they're petroglyphs or pictographs painted on the walls, matching very closely the three varieties found in the early Bronze Age of Portugal and Spain. Thus, in slide 26, we have on the left a Texan example of a simple adze-shaped form, while on the right, the same slide, we see an American ocular plate. In slide 27, we see two American examples, one from Waco Tanks of the third variety with the added head. For the sake of comparison, slide 28 shows a Portuguese adze type on the left and the corresponding Waco Tanks type on the right. Slide 29 shows a Portuguese ocular type on the left and the corresponding Waco Tanks ocular on the right. Slide 30 shows a Portuguese third type or capitate form on the left with the head and the corresponding Waco Tanks equivalent on the right. What conclusions can we draw? We might make the inference that early Bronze Age voyagers came in seagoing ships from southern Portugal and southern Spain across the Atlantic to reach the mouth of the Rio Grande, and then sailed up the river until they reached the Waco Tanks. There they were apparently later joined by other wanderers from Celtic and Scandinavian countries of Europe.
Thank you, Dr. Fell. We appreciate you very much. Now, I would like to go into one or two slides that we have not discussed yet, which I think are important as well, and I think you'll enjoy them. If we may, let's go to the first slide at this time. I had mentioned that you have dual language. Here you have Ogham at the top of the screen and Iberian below, both saying water. Now, this was very near a tank, which was broken at the time we were there. You see some of this destruction, but certainly in both languages is really a fascinating thing that it documents the travelers up and down the Rio Grande River. What a place, these Waco Tanks. It is a state park, and I highly recommend that you visit it. And I hope that the state of Texas will fund more and preserve more these wonderful writings of ancient travelers. They are the best really that you'll find in the country today, and they certainly need to be protected. Now let's move on to the next slide, if we may. This slide incidentally was overhead, the one we just looked at, and very difficult to find, so I don't think anyone will destroy it. Here we have the twin stars and the boat below it, showing right here on the Rio Grande River probably how they came and one of the signs they followed to get them there. And we see the oarsmen and the way of travel. My friends, Columbus was certainly not the first visitor to this great nation, because here not only do you have the boat and the ship, but you have even their method of navigation, or at least part of their method of navigation. How fascinating that dating back hundreds and hundreds of years ago, we find that in some the waterways being the highways, if you would, or the freeways of our great nation. That is a beautiful, beautiful pictograph. Now let's go on, if we may, to the next, which you will see here in a moment. The next slide, please. Here we have a face that is a little unusual, but yet at the same time, there was not a burial plaque near this one. So simply meaning, as we find even in Europe, the travelers speaking the same language with the same petroglyphs, leaving the same signals of their visitation even on these great shores. Here we have a Iberian burial plaque. It's very faint, and some of these are very, very old, and they certainly need preservation, but be that as it may, you see the plaque, you'll see the man's head above the plaque there. Let's go, if we may, to the next. Here again, Iberian burial plaque. And I must say that we found these from even at Victoria Peak on Bloody Hen's Bluff. We found one place where obviously there was an Iberian burial because of the color of paint. To the experienced eye, they're very obvious. Here's probably one of the best preserved. This is on a ceiling. It is an Iberian burial plaque. It is preserved from the weather, and it's very difficult to find. And I'm certainly even within the state park, and I think it's probably very good that it is difficult to find, because it is just almost as though it were the day they placed it there. It is a beautiful burial plaque, and in one little crevice back behind this particular location, again, I'm not going to say a great deal about it because I really want to see this one preserved. There is a place for burial, but the Iberians up the Rio Grande River, I think it's fascinating, and I think that our history that we need and certainly have a great deal to learn yet. It's all here, the rocks speak, the trail is left. If the academic world could just open its mind and realize Columbus did not discover America, and we need to educate our children to the true history, the true facts as they lend themselves and are so very obvious that anyone that isn't an absolute fool can recognize that this great nation, this hemisphere, has had many visitors. And when the dual languages are brought forth, and I thank Dr. Barry Fell for having made this stand that he has in his teaching career, that he would publish the book America BC, and then later, yes, America BC. First was the Bronze Age America, and then America BC, which we carry in our own library. But that his dedication in bringing these truths forward, this history that is documented in stone, we have a heritage, and it's very valuable, and we need to protect it. We need to bring that forth. So that's one of the reasons I enjoy presenting these documentaries, and certainly appreciate and thank Dr. Fell for really, he's the one that makes it possible. It was his idea to go to these two locations. Let's talk about Blue Mountain for a moment. Blue Mountain is not actually a mountain. It is a cave located on the Cap Rock in Texas. I'll simply say that it's not any good to report it. It's gone now. That's one of the real sad parts. But I do want to take you by drawing by Mr. Kirkland of what it looked like in 1939. We see here a beautiful petroglyph. We have the same ship for travel that would be really considerably further down the Rio Grande than where we have been. We have the little bird man which in Aesop, Dr. Fell has done much work with. And this was really quite an area, and there are many symbols that we won't go into, but very meaningful when you're on the Cap Rock and could look down and see this area, another ship, and I'm sure this is the story of the crossing. And this has a deeper meaning, which someday we will do a documentary with the little bird and the ship to help you understand that. But now we're going to go to footage actually in the field of what it looked like when we were there. How disturbing to find that probably a gold hunter, a treasure hunter, or some pot hunter, they don't seem to realize that these petroglyphs, they don't know how to read them, therefore there's not one word about buried treasure. It is a record of travels, what they were doing there and what they found there. And apparently some pot hunter or gold hunter thought that this was a map to some lost treasure, and naturally it had to be right where the petroglyph was, so he blew down the whole wall. And here's the little footage we ran there on Blue Mountain. Let's have a listen. Okay, here is one of the real sad things about the historical sites where the ancient writings are in our country. I'm holding in my hand a picture which you'll be showing a close-up later. This is the wall that used to be, and I'm going to have someone walk right over here and point out where the chipping started. It's just about where someone lately has drawn. From there to here, originally this cave was not here. Someone took probably from the drawing and decided there was something buried here by the ancients. And they have desecrated and chipped away the entire wall, the entire drawing. One of the drawings is a Norse drawing that many of them are found in Sweden, the ship with the bird. And as we continue that, but it is real sad that in our nation, that people who do not understand ancient artifacts, that either get gold fever or treasure fever or something of this nature. And the drawing that was on the wall was far more valuable than, I assure you, what they found, because probably what they got was a lot of bruises and a lot of sweat. And they probably were in better shape when they finished, but our drawing is gone. This is the sad part. But that's the story from Blue Mountain, Texas. It no longer exists. The ancient drawings. They are desecrated. They are gone. The entire area, there are hundreds of holes, some of them worn totally through slab rock. There's hundreds of them here on Blue Mountain. There must have been a considerable sized village here at one time. And we know from the writings, the pictographs that were destroyed, that even some of the Norsemen from Sweden are in that area, for it was writings of Odin. But we continue on, and we have searched diligently for writings of some sign, marks, but it would seem that most on this ridge simply were the great marketplace where corn was ground. So I have no doubt that in the lower valleys where there was water, there was much corn growing in this area. And for the length of time, due to the percussion instruments used for grinding corn, it would have been a large city, and also they were here for a great length of time. We're going to examine this little crevice. You must remember it has been since 1939 that anyone has been here probably that recognizes pictographs and ancient writings. So this is one of those trips that it's all exploratory, and the stone is very, it's scaling, it's falling away, it's very rotten, as an archaeologist would say. And when we make that statement, all that remains, it would seem those places where the work was put out for simply feeding themselves is about all that remains at this day. But even within that, we find the excitement of exploring this great ridge that is called Blue Mountain in western Texas. I suppose that it isn't necessary that you make a great find in every location and you always have the disappointments of someone having been there with unruly hands and tools. But it's still exciting to get out in our nation and explore the vast unknown. Yes, there are still areas that are unknown. That's the way things are found. We thank our Father for the privilege that we are able to do this occasionally. Anyone found any more corn demoises up in this area? Nope. It would seem that the community is basically where Mike is holding the camera, which is 200 or 300 feet, and that they use that as their safe haven. And we're up on a place where a guard could have a lookout, and you could cover hundreds of miles in visibility for protection, that is to say, to spot an enemy force or someone that might bring harm to the families. So here we are, Blue Mountain, Texas. A little sad, yeah. It's always sad when you see ancient writings torn away, but at least we see the same area. Thank God we have a copy of those writings before they were torn away. At least the place remains, and still enough obvious signs that the peoples were here, and yes, Norsemen visited with them. Again, we want to thank Dr. Barry Fell and Mr. Kirkland for his travels in '39 when he first led us into this great area. Waco Tanks is a place that you might want to visit. If you are kind of a rugged individual, there's a lot of rock climbing done there. That's not my thing, it might be yours. but certainly for those that enjoy pictographs that are protected. Now, I understand there's been some damage. Somebody got handy with a spray can since we've taken some of these pictures, but it is a park. If you happen by El Paso, Texas, the walking is relatively easy. The paths and trails are good, and certainly it is worth the time to appreciate one of God's natural reservoirs of water. These stones it was kind of like, if I'll put it in very lay terms, and it was like this globs, these three mountains, approximately a mile long each, were just big blurbs that were pushed up from the surface, and kind of like it was still boiling, and like a bubble of air would pop, and that leaves a hole, which is a tank. And a very unusual formation, and something that you will really enjoy. It's one of the few places where we can tell you the actual location of the pictographs and drawings that you'll enjoy, petroglyphs, and to see them. Be very careful. The rocks are slick when you come up to one of the springs under shelters. It's very slick, but if you're in average good health or just average health, this will be a place that you can actually see where the people traveled. The Indian battles, there were 2 or 3 Indian battles that took place in this particular area, and a fascinating place. There are, as we have discussed, there are hookups for you that have your motor homes and that sort of thing. There are campsites for those of you that simply like to pitch a tent. And it is a place that is really worthwhile because it is protected, and because you have the dual languages, which means that there were enough travelers that had enough knowledge that they could put the same writing side by side. And you know, what is fascinating is then to have the Indian snake sign leading to water on the same stone. In actuality, you have 3 languages leading to the same water reservoir. And I know that you're going to enjoy Waco Tanks. And of course, scratch Blue Mountain. It doesn't exist any longer. And that is a sad part of our American history, that these places with these ancient writings are not recognized by some that either have greed for riches or whatever their case might be, that they would literally destroy a panel such as was located at Blue Mountain. Sorry, it's all gone. It no longer exists. After having been there for hundreds and hundreds of years and was in fairly good shape up until the year 1939, now a few sticks of dynamite and a screwball, and it's gone. So, but it was there, and thank God we were able to document it through Kirkland's work, and what a work it was. Documentaries, they're exciting. We enjoy doing them, and I hope that you appreciate the heritage, the history, and nature itself, our people, the peoples, God's children that have lived on this earth, inhabited it, traded places. This people moved in, this people moved out. These were travelers worldwide, travelers that left their footnotes and their messages in stone, travelers that we can appreciate. You see, they were your ancestors, so it is your history. And as the book itself stated, they would be scattered over the world. This documents, indeed they were. And I'm happy to say that Waco Tanks and Blue Mountain in that great state of Texas, it was exciting, and bless your hearts, you were there.